I think I'm the only person from Bangkok speaking here, so I'll also try to speak on behalf of Bangkok, and also the only person from automotive industry on the stage, so this could be an interesting dialogue. I wish, just give a big hug to the CEO and just forget about measurement and go home. But I think we don't. And I picked up this topic not because we wanted to share what we are doing, but maybe it could be a very good dialogue, because this is the topic that is keeping us awake in the night in Nissan as we are transforming communications. We always thought that measurement is the Achilles heel for PR, communications in general. There are many layers, so we can't cover all the layers here. We are trying to do a lot of development on measurement, measuring operations, execution, and impact. But I would stick to the impact part of it, and especially driving through the boardroom, and which is very important. Okay, I skipped that. It is no longer about seat at the table. All of us know communications have evolved. We're not struggling anymore to be able to get the seat at the table, but it's all about why we are there. What's our voice? What are we trying to tell them about communications? And coming from an industry which is product-driven and very, very complex, this becomes a challenge for us as we sit every day at the table trying to say what we are doing is impacting, at the end of the day, the business. Selling a car, it's as simple as that. We have seen path to purchase from American Express point of view, but this is a clear path to purchase for automotive. And I think most of you who are in the agencies who are working with automotive clients, you understand this. We're the most complex in terms of purchase decisions, mainly because a recent study that we were evaluating with my team, it says that the brand consideration for an automotive begins in elementary school. Your kid's going to a shop to buy a miniature car is determining which brand they would like to buy in future. Somebody who's at the video parlor racing a car is determining a brand that they would like to choose and race. So our complexity is much more than just making somebody go to the showroom and buy the car. And although consumers buy vehicles at dealerships, most of the decision-making points are influenced by various touch points, and not all are in our control, not all can be planned in communications planning. But if you look at it, high category involvement, the consumer path can be characterized by heavy use of review articles. Now, this can be debated. It's always debated in the boardroom, by the way. Is automotive journalist reviewing a car influencing a purchase decision today? Not sure. But it is one of the touch points where a person would like to see what others say about it. Brand predisposition, I just told you about it. I can't go to the elementary school and display a car there to make the children love Nissan. But that's another consideration. So social network is playing a major role. I don't want to go into it. All of us spoke about it. All of us spoke about the influence of social media. We also are in the same category when it comes to automotive. But if you look at it, there's a time period where we have influence can be categorized and targeted. If you look at it, 56% is first behavioral influence that you can see on the auto review sites. So they are considering various reviews to make a decision before the last decision on purchase is taken. But the last decision on purchase is they're going to the websites of the manufacturer to really understand what they are offering. So there is a difference. There is a categories of influence that are involved in these purchase path. Now, it's a very interesting chart. Now, I picked these slides from our market intelligence. Generally, till date, we've never been using the slides when we are planning communications. Marketing uses it because they need to prove every day that they're influencing the familiarity and purchase decision in the funnel. But if you look at it, TV is driving a lot of people to go to the showrooms, and you can see commercial of communication with others, which is word of mouth. I think everybody knows a car is purchased, you ask your neighbors, you ask your father, you ask your friend, you ask everybody in the world on which car they are driving, are they liking the car or not. So word of mouth plays a big role. And then outdoor ads. That's the reason we spend a lot of money on sponsorships, billboards, everywhere. So these are driving purchase. And if you look at the reason why people are going to dealership, they want to check out an external design, they want to see interior design, and they want to get a quote, price. I think Deepa spoke about the price and the importance of price here. That's driving them to go to the dealership. So for us, why am I speaking about this? For us, bringing a customer to the dealership is the most important step. And that's where, whether it's marketing, sales, or communications, need to struggle. Inversion of influence. Today, influence is sitting with the general population. Even one person on the road, a car fails on the road, one person can damage the brand immediately. Since that car always gets stuck on the road. There is nobody to come and help us tow the car. And that could really cause a lot of damage to the brand. Or recently, maybe all of you have read about emissions issues that are causing the industry a nightmare. And then we also have airbags, which happens to be from a supplier, which don't work. And it could cause a problem with the brand. So traditional pyramid has been upended right now. It's changed. The influence is sitting with the general population. And more, what we do in communications is to cause a behavioral change. It is to the real people that we need to be talking about. So here is what we wanted to do. And this is open for discussion. This is not yet a time-tested model, but targeting is something that is becoming more and more important in communication planning. Measurement comes after planning. So when we are planning our communications, are we targeting the right audience? And this could be demographic, psychographic, or opportunities, depending on what we are. I don't think we have one measurement that we can take to the boardroom and say, this is effective. It is not. We need to be conscious that it could be different for different purposes. If I'm talking to the boardroom about a launch of a new car, the measurement that I show to them is completely different from a thought leadership initiative that I would take. I'm talking about electric vehicles and electrification, for example, in Southeast Asian market, where it is still very immature to talk about it. So there are two different objectives to measurement over there. So are we able to target is the question. And action, are we using market intelligence data the way marketing uses or sales uses? There was a discussion earlier with Edelman as they are coming on board, and we were talking about it. We all know the pitch. We all know how to talk to the media and get them to write us the story. But the thing that we were talking about is how many of the media really understand what the consumer wants today? And who is guiding that behavior? Is a publication like a Top Gear influencing a purchase decision? We've seen the path to purchase. They are a reference point, but they're not making a behavioral change for somebody to select a car. And the selection of the car may be as good as it, might be because of my father, who's been driving for 25 years, a Toyota. And he vouches by it, so you buy a Toyota because your father says, buy it, I stand by it. So this is how behavior is influencing purchase to a large extent. So are we looking at how we are using market intelligence, customer profiles, to talk to the right publications which are influencing the consumers, and also digital. A lot of questions around digital. How are we listening to it? How do you use digital to really deliver value? And digital is not an owned tool by one function. It's not marketing, it's not sales, it's not just communications. It's an integrated activity today. Every day has a role to play in digital, and that's where we're also moving forward very clearly to use these tools in the right way. Now, why this is something that we are just putting together to see how we work on it. Identifying the right audience. I want to sell a car, which is a hatchback, in a market like Myanmar. And do I know what that particular person reads today? And am I looking at getting the coverage in that particular publication as opposed to a Wall Street Journal or a Bloomberg? And this is the difference. There are necessities that we have to consider, keeping the top 200, 150 publications. We need to work towards it. But for me to sell a car, I need to be targeting. I need to know my audience, their interests, the publications that influence them. Then acquire relevant media hits, pitch the media which is right, and try to tell them the story that makes sense to the media. So that's when I can show to my boardroom that here is the publication that is being chosen by marketing to put an advertisement because they think this is what the target customer reads. But we are also looking at the same publications to establish a story which could have more impact than just an advertisement, because in the purchase, obviously, behavior is dictated. So amplify via paid media, because we're talking not just about earned media. I think all of our colleagues agreed to that. It's earned, paid, and owned, all three categories. And I'm really impressed by the American Express video. We are also trying to invest in videos that make sense to audience. So it's time to brutally be honest. Are we targeting the right publications, and are we doing the right media platforms to tell the story? Opportunity for brand to fill in the gaps. Like I said, the end of the purchase is earned media. People are going to websites, people are going to Facebooks, people are going to media that we own. So we have an opportunity to tell a story in owned media too, and collaborate with third party. And I think this is an extensive research that's happening on how third parties can help us in targeting the right customers. So, I'm sorry, I have a very bad throat, so let's just. So draw a link between awareness and coverage. So this is the key for us. What we're trying to do is to talk about, so in a chart that you look at path for purchase, we call it overall opinion. There is familiarity, there is consideration, and there's the decision to purchase. So how can we draw a link between the awareness that we are creating with that of coverage that's appearing? Determine if social efforts are driving conversations. This is easier now with more and more sophisticated tools, including SRS, how the social reputation is working towards it. And then come to diagnostics. Now, this model has not been implemented yet. We are experimenting with this, but there's short-term diagnostics. I don't know how many of you can see it clearly. The short-term diagnostics includes what we are measuring today: SOV, SOI, tonality, message penetration. You could look at all these, but then we move on to overall opinion, brand awareness, thought leadership. So many of the long-term metrics that we can look at. What we can investigate, obviously, is what's the key drivers and influencer, media types, outlets. We can measure all these things. But most importantly, how story is traveling among these publications, among these social media tools. What is the most engaged content? And we have some examples that we heard in the morning as well on, is this content more engaging, and is it for the right demographics? Targeting is the key. So, some examples of metrics and opinions for a planning sheet that we are using, and how do we break it down into categories: media, peer-to-peer conversations, opinion shifts. Are we able to present the opinion shift and the behavioral changes, which is more sophisticated in terms of talking in general, not just about communication, but overall impact of the integrated communications that we do along with marketing and sales. So this is one of the examples that we're looking at. Open for more dialogue.
Thank you. So Lavanya, without putting you on the spot, the obvious question is, if Edelman are working on a big global communications campaign, is there a plan also as part of that work to have a global measurement standard?
Oh, we already have. We are working with Prime for the past 1 year, trying to develop measurement standards. And I would say that it's been 1 year that the discussions are still on, and we are still trying to finalize what should be the KPIs for communications across the world and unify these. But then, like I said, it's divided. There's execution operations, which can be local, but there's an impact which is universal.
Okay, thank you. So, coming to questions. Microphone down here, please. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. You talked a lot about a lot of the proactive, positive stuff that you're doing, and you mentioned very briefly some of the risks around potential negative stuff. I was wondering if you could maybe expand a little bit on how Nissan has reacted to the whole VW emissions scandal, and whether that's led you at a senior level to look at how both you're measuring yourselves, but also how you're managing your communications.
That's a very interesting question, because we were almost in the same situation in South Korea. So that was my first assignment as I moved into this role. We had a very similar emissions scandal that broke out, where the government of South Korea accused us of manipulating data for the emissions. But the point that you took a Volkswagen name and not Nissan shows that we did do a good job. So today was an article I was just reading about, where there's a lot of media today questioning the government stance on discontinuing a car like Qashqai based on the manipulated data, when the same car is being sold as the highest selling model in Europe. And this was today's news. So I think the way I would put it is, we were able to contain the news to give the right perspective to the media, given that the situation is very easy to compare with Volkswagen, and we would be constantly questioned on the same grounds. But we also were able to give a perspective into how technology works. And everything is not manipulation, everything is not about homologation data. So I think that's another thing that is happening today, even in South Korea, is policy advocacy. And communications is leading that.
So for now, we'll say thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Boy, delighted. Thank you.
Thank you.